Hey there YouTube, Chris here, doing a little deck list on Netrunner, actually this time, and this deck list is a single revised core Hasbiroid deck, and I'm going to be doing this for all of the corps and all of the runners. I'm going to do it for a single core set, and then I'm going to actually make some nice themed, very decks that heavily revolve around a certain objective or theme using multiple core sets. And they'll either be 2 or 3 depending on how many are actually needed for the deck list, because for those who don't know, Netrunner has a core set that doesn't have 3 copies of each card in it, unlike the rest of its packs. And this leads to some interesting cases where, well, not really interesting, just frustrating cases where you end up needing to buy 2 or 3 core sets in order to actually create a deck you want to create. And I personally have 3 core sets, so I've been playing with them with my partner, who is new to the game, has been learning it through the core set, and we will be going through the Hasbira deck I've put together here using a single revised core set. So this isn't something I've put a huge amount of thought into, because I want to save that more for the 3 revised core set decks. But rather just looking at each ID, looking at the cards that it comes with in faction and the neutrals, and then putting those together and just kind of sorting out the weaknesses each one has. So to start us off, let's review the ID we're working with. It's Hasbiroid, which has the effect Hasbiroid Stronger Together, and the ID effect, which is just a passive effect affecting the whole game, is all Biroid Ice has +1 strength. So there's one little issue with Hasbiroid, especially in the core set when you're using only one. The ice, which names end in a 1.0, are the collection of Biroid ice. They can also be 2.0 or 3.0, or in some cases they don't have that version number at the end. In the case of Fairchild, in a certain cycle of the packs for this game, it's called the Flashpoint cycle. There's a Fairchild 1.0, a Fairchild 2.0, a Fairchild 3.0, and then just Fairchild, which is supposed to be the ultimate version of it, I guess. And one problem I'm instantly noticing here is that not every Biroid even included in the core set, and there's not that many. Not all of them are even 2-ofs in the case of Heimdall. Heimdall 1.0 is the only included, just had to check that, it only included Barrier Biroid, and it's only a 1-of. So, ignoring Hudson because he isn't particularly great in the core set. I'm not sure he's particularly great in many cases at all, to be honest with you. But we have 1 plus 2 plus 3. We have 6 pieces of Biroid Ice, which means our ID ability is giving 6 pieces of our ice a buff of 1 strength. Not amazing. So Stronger Together isn't considered one of the strongest HP identities by quite a long shot. So I won't be too hyped up about it, but we're gonna go over some stuff to maybe make it work. And to start off with, the agendas, for example, you don't have much choice when you only have 1 core set. You are, depending on your faction, you will have 20 or 21 points worth of agendas just by using all of them. And if you have 21, then the solution is usually to cut a false lead to get yourself down to 20. So running 9 agendas out of 49 cards, so 1 in 7. And the idea there is that you want a higher deck size as possible while keeping your agenda number as low as possible. So 49 cards is the higher end of the 45 to 49 bracket, where you need 20 to 21 agenda points. And this is the most efficient way of getting 20 agenda points in the core set. In fact, even if you took out a Private Security Force or a Project Ares and put False Lead in, you still wouldn't be at 20, so this is the only way to get 20. So one of the strengths of HB is they've got this very strong advertisement asset called Adonis Campaign, which you check it down, and before the start of one of your turns, you pay 4. It will give you 3 back that turn, and it will give you 3 back for 3 more turns after that, totaling 12 credits over 4 turns. And the way you res this basically means that you go down 1 credit during a turn, and you basically say to your opponent, you trash this or I'm getting 9 more credits. And since it's got a free trash cost and you could put it behind a cheap piece of ice, that's a good way of saying if you don't spend a bunch of your money, I'm going to gain a load of money. And that could be quite a problem for some runners. So there's a similar neutral card called Pad Campaign, just to gain 1 when your turn begins. And it's a similar affair to Adonis. You're saying to the runner, come trash this or I'm going to get a load of free money. And I apologize if you hear any beeping in the background. The fire alarm is low on battery and needs a new one. Okay, so the other asset is another neutral asset, and it's Melange Mining Corp. It's basically an asset that you pay 1 to res it, and you spend 3 clicks to gain some money. It's another one of those things of, you tell the runner to come destroy it, or you're just going to gain a bunch of money off it. So, your assets is going to be a good source of your money. And then, for upgrades, we've got some basically agenda protection upgrades in Ash and Strongbox. Ash means that the runner has to win a trace against you to access anything else in the server that he's in. And Strongbox means that in order to steal an agenda from the server that Strongbox is in, the runner needs to spend an extra click, which if they've been clicking through your Byroads, which is their little gimmick, then they will probably have a hard time getting through Strongbox. I would like to point out that the issue with these two is, once again, they are one-offs, so the chance of seeing an Ash in the game isn't amazingly high. And another one-off is Archive Memories, which is the start of your relatively strong operation pool, actually. So, Archive Memories is just add 1 card from Archives to HQ, and it goes great with your card Biotic Labor, which is 4 credits to gain 2 clicks. So, the idea here is you turn a 3-click turn into a 4-click turn, which, in order to score your free cost agenda from hand, you spend the first of those 4 clicks installing it, and then the last 3 clicks to advance it up to 3 points, and then score it. And that'll tend to be how this deck wants to end out a game. So early game, you're going to try and get up to 5 points, or, well, you want to get up to 5, or maybe 6 points, by scoring a priority requisition and a private security force or a Project Ares, which should get you up to 5. And then your endgame wants to be scoring out Project Vitruvius with Biotic Labor. Or, if you've managed to score at least 1 priority requisition or go up to 4 points with a security force and an Ares, for example, then your fast advance is what using Biotic Labor to score an agenda is called. You'll fast advance your Project Vitruvius twice. So you'll score 2 of them in that way, hence why Archive Memories is useful. Other reasons Archive Memories is useful is Celebrity Gift is one of the imported cards. This game has an influence system that allows you to import cards from other factions. And one thing this deck has is a pretty steep budget in terms of the cost of ice, because of some of the imported ice, and also the fact that they got some solid HB has some solid in-faction mid-range cost ice, a bit of high cost, and not a huge amount of low cost. So definitely needs a good source of income. Celebrity Gift is you basically reveal a bunch of cards in your hand and gain money for how many cards you revealed. You can either use this to withhold information, or basically just say, oh, you've been digging around in my hand a bunch. Here's all the cards you've already seen. Now I'll take a bunch of money. And then green level clearance, gain free money, draw a card. It's always a solid thing. You just draw it and then you spend a click to basically just cycle it, and you get money for doing so. And then hedge fund, you just gain 4 money total. You pay 5, gain 9. So operations are basically mostly around getting money, similar for your assets. You want to gain a load of money, res some expensive ice, score out behind that expensive ice, and then when the runner can actually get through your expensive ice, you're just going to use Biotic Labor to fast advance out your last agenda. So, most of the influence in this deck has actually gone on the ice. I've only spent 14 influence because the 15th influence point would actually be swapping out a wall of static for another wraparound. But for now, we have, if that was possible, that is. for now, we have Heimdall 1.0, which is pretty expensive to break barrier in the core set, considering the barrier break is available to the runner. But it's got that caveat of the runner can spend a click to break any subroutine on it, and all of the 1.0 Bioroids have this, and it basically makes all of them pretty porous in that if you had an Enigma in a server and a Heimdall, and all I had was a code gate breaker, I could just run first click, use 3 clicks to get through Heimdall for no money, break your Enigma, and access whatever's in the server, and that would have cost you 11 to res all that stuff, and I could break it without actually needing to find my Fractor. So that's one weakness of the Bioroid Ace, which is one weakness we're trying to cover up with stuff like Hive, which is a very expensive to break early game ice that has an end the run subroutine, has 5 end the run subroutines, and then every point you've scored so far, it loses one. So when you score your priority requisition, it will go down to 2 end the run subroutines. This kind of matches up with our little game plan of trying to score like a priority rec and an Ares very quickly, at which point the Hive would have no subroutines, and then from there you just fast advance the Vitruvius without even letting it touch the board, basically. And annoyingly, Hive is only a 1-of in the core set, I do believe. Let me just confirm that. Oh, no, Hive is a 2-of, but I would have had to drop down to... Yeah, that's a good little change you can make. Up to 2 Hives, down to 1 wraparound. Wraparound is just a really solid ice because it adds some low end, but depending on how your games are going, you could swap out a Hive for wraparound and stay influence legal. But yeah, 1 or 2 Hive, 1 or 2 wraparound, and I guess we should cover wraparound. So wraparound is a 2-cost barrier with one end the run subroutine, has 0 strength, but if the runner doesn't have a Fractor, which is a barrier breaker program, then wraparound gets +7 strength, and this basically means that there's a few AI breakers that can break any piece of ice, but if they don't also have a Fractor, then it can't break wraparound for a decent amount of money. And also, the barrier breakers in the core set aren't very good to begin with, so even after they've got their Fractor, this usually costs them 2 credits to get through, which is considerable. And then the final barrier is Wall of Static, which is a 3-cost, 3 strength, end the run barrier. No tricks, just straight end the run. And its partner in the code gate section is a 3-cost code gate called Enigma. 2 strength, 2 subroutines. The first one is the runner loses a click if able, and the second one is end the run. So there's a slight punish if the runner just charges into it, in that they lose a click, but otherwise it's just a Wall of Static that's a code gate instead. Tollbooth is one of your big ones that you're going to use to maybe score some agendas behind. When the runner encounters Tollbooth, they have to pay 3 credits. If the runner can't pay 3, then they have to end their run. And then its subroutine is end the run. So it's 8 strength, it's 8 cost, 5 strength with 1 subroutine. Doesn't cost a huge amount for breakers like Gordian to break the subroutine, but if you add the 3 cost on top of that, then even Gordian, which would break this for 4, that cost suddenly goes up to 7, which is pretty much as much as you paid to res the thing. And that is very good combined with a Hive in front of a scoring server. You just have to amass the 13 credits to res both, which is pretty steep. So Victor 1.0 is another one of your Bioroids. So it's a 3-cost, 3 strength. Remember, that'll be 4 in your ID, with 2 subroutines, and do 1 brain damage and end the run. And the runner can spend a click to break any subroutine on Victor 1.0. So the strength Enigma has over Victor is that the runner can't just spend 2 clicks to get in scot-free, but if they run last click and they hit Victor and they can't break it, then a brain damage is a card from their hand and their hand size goes down, which, while not too punishable in the core set, is a solid. It's definitely a solid effect. And then finally we got Sentries. Your last Bioroid that you're going to run, because we're skipping out on Hudson, is Ichi 1.0, which is a 5 cost, 4 strength Sentry with 3 subroutines even, of Trash 1 program, and then Trace 1. If successful, give the runner 1 tag and do 1 brain damage. So if they manage to hit this and can't click through the trash programs, they are going to have a bad day. And this is actually 5 strength in your ID, and one of the common breakers, Sentry breakers in the core set, is Mimic, which is stuck at 3 strength. And even if it gets boosted to 4, or Ichi gets reduced to 4 by Data Sucker or Personal Touch, then Itchy's still pretty safe. But it still can be clicked through, and it doesn't have an in the run subroutine, which is where Rototurret comes in. It's a 4 cost, 0 strength sentry with 2 subroutines of Trash One Program and the run. If the runner can break these subroutines, normally you won't res this. This is very good for if they face check into a Rototurret and you can trash their Mopus or something that they've installed before running. It's something that if you can land the subroutines on a runner is a great res. If you can't and they're just going to pay 2 credits to run past it, maybe you just trash it and install something in its place. Depends on how much money the runner actually has. But yeah. So the weakest point of HB in the core set is actually its ice, which is where we spent most of our influence beefing it up with some strong early game ice. Tollbooth, if they don't have the money to pay it, then they just get kicked out. Even if they do have that money to pay it, normally paying that money will get them low enough on money that they can't break the end of the run subroutine. Hive is just a nightmare to break unless they're running Morningstar, but Morningstar is so expensive to install that if you get a Hive going very quickly and you're scoring behind it, chances are they're not going to be able to just whack down a Morningstar and run before you can score at least one agenda. And if they do manage to install that Morningstar, but you've scored a priority rec, then Hive only has 2 subroutines, so they're not getting a huge advantage over a different kind of breaker. So for playstyle of this deck, you want to score out 1 or 2 agendas very quickly behind your Hive, behind your wraparounds, behind your War Static or Enigma, or maybe even your Rototurret if they can't find their Sentry Breaker. And then later on, you're just going to try and use the Bioroids, which are quite costly to break normally, to tax them on their HQ and R&D runs, make them as poor as you can so they can't manage to steal your Vitruvius. Use Biotic Cleaver Vitruvius combo, which is a 7 credit combo, to score out the last 2 points and just win the game. The chance of that happening with some of the 1-ofs and 2-ofs in the core set, not a huge probability. So, but that's going to be a theme of a lot of the single revised core decks, in that they won't be super consistent, but I think that this is probably this is basically a revised core HB deck where we've addressed one of the weaknesses of the HB deck, being that its ice is quite porous, and we fixed that by putting in some strong end the run ice for early game. So hopefully you enjoyed this little video, and if you do have a single core set, I recommend trying out this deck and seeing if you like it. Unfortunately, this deck isn't a great show of what HB could do. It's got quite a bit of HB, like common HB cards like Ash, Strongbox may be coming into its own soon. Biotic Labor is one of the key ones, and then Archive Memories, and then a few pieces of the ice are decent. Like Victor 1.0 is a very good piece of ice because it's quite cheap, quite costly to break through without using clicks, and Vitruvius is pretty much the staple 3-2 of HB, but otherwise, other than Adonis campaign, there's no huge power cards here. Honestly, it really is just Adonis and Biotic Labor, and then Ash that are the big power cards here. But Ash and Biotic aren't even 3-ofs, so it's not going to be a huge good show of HB, and sadly I can't recommend if you're really into HB and not that much into Shaper, I can't really recommend you go buy Creation Control just to buff HB, because Creation Control wasn't even that great for HB. I think like if I had to pick out one key piece from Creation Control that is pretty neat for HB, is actually Heimdall 2.0, but it's a very expensive piece of ice. It's like 11 credits to res, so probably not something you could just chuck in an upgrade to the core set deck, where you don't have a huge amount of money in this deck, to be blunt. And having to spend 6 influence to get some celebrity gifts in to try and deal with that money, alongside already the asset package and green level clearance to get you money. It's going to be a tough game if you can't get your credit funds up to above 10 or... if you can keep above 10, then you're in a pretty good spot. So yeah, hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one.